Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. In a matter of 2 weeks, two very different interactions between President Trump and Michigan Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Weeks after a photo went viral of Whitmer hiding her face from cameras in the Oval Office, well, she embraced the president in her home state last night. I want to bring in our reporter panel, Daniella Diaz, a congressional reporter for NOTUS. Remember, that's News of the U.S. Nancy Cook, senior national political correspondent for Bloomberg. All right, let's get the Gretchen Whitmer thing out of the way. Nancy, what do you think it means or doesn't mean for the way Democrats evaluate Gretchen Whitmer, her interaction as governor of Michigan with the Trump administration, and possible 2028 ramifications?
Well, I definitely think she has presidential aspirations to run in 2028. I mean, that may be the most obvious statement that we say today. But I think that her two recent interactions with Trump kind of cancel each other out, right? So she was hiding in the Oval Office when he basically sort of ambushed her and dragged her into the situation.
Which she was not expecting, wasn't properly prepped, you know, didn't go through all the preparatory process. Where are you going to stand here? What are we going to do? No, it's like, what? I'm in the Oval?
Right. And she didn't want to seem like she and her people did not want it to seem like she was complicit in what was happening there.
Right.
But then she had a big political win yesterday where, you know, he is in Michigan, he's talking about the economy, and he is there at an Air Force base, basically, you know, saying, we're going to give you financial support for this. What a win for her as the governor of that state. And so I think they canceled each other out.
Danielle?
It's such a contrast, though, to see what she's doing in this moment compared to other potential 2028 candidates like J.B. Pritzker, who are saying we need to protest every single thing that Trump is doing. We can't support anything that he's doing. Pure resistance. And here she is hugging him on the tarmac. But it is a political win for her because she did get the funding she got. And in an interview with the New York Times, she said, look, I wanted this. This happened. This was the moment that took place, and it seemed to be that she recognized what was happening in that moment.
Right, and the calculation for her, short, mid, and long term, is activist base. Will it understand governing realities, governing necessities, or will it only judge you on the fervent nature of your resistance ethos? Exactly,
and like I said, it is very different than what we're seeing, and maybe it could work for her to be a more moderate candidate embracing the administration that is.
What I'm going to discuss with you next is not exactly resistance ethos, but it's interesting blowback to the president from a couple of interesting sources. First, as we have already discussed, the president blamed today's low GDP numbers on President Biden. This is David Portnoy, and he posted on social media today. He's with Barstool Sports, big supporter of Trump, very influential in the sort of Trumpian manosphere. Here's what he wrote. The stock market is a direct reflection of Trump's first 100 days in office. Doesn't mean it won't get better and that we don't need to be patient, but this is his market, not Biden's. Now I want to play for you sound from the Senate floor today of Rand Paul, talking about Congress, the authority over tariffs, and what's happening when Congress cedes that authority to the president. Let's listen.
Legislators who stand aside and abdicate the power to tax will one day rue the accumulation of power in the office of one person. I stand against this emergency, I stand against these tariffs, and I stand against shredding the Constitution. I have no animus towards the president. I voted for him and support his administration. I come to the floor today not because I want to, but because I am compelled to. I love my country and the principles upon which it is founded. The oath I took upon taking this office is the Constitution of the United States, and not to any person or faction. I want to preserve the divisions of power that protect us and our children from the rule of one person.
So that was not an indulgence to run that sound. It was a long piece of sound, I grant you, ladies and gentlemen, but it's an important argument. It's one that Rand Paul makes in lots of different contexts, but it hasn't been argued this strongly yet, and now it has. Nancy.
It's a huge deal because we have seen Republicans in Congress sort of roll over and do whatever Trump has wanted so far, including confirming all of his nominees. You know, there has really been no protest. And what we're hearing from Senator Paul is really a senator saying these tariffs are not what we want it to be, and we, members of Congress, should have authority over tariffs. And this, I think, is some of the first sort of blowback from Congress actually taking their separate powers seriously and trying to say,
or at least try and have a conversation about it.
Try to have a conversation. And I think a blowback to the economic agenda, which is something Trump ran on, which is really key to his presidency.
And you had some fantastic and interesting reporting on conversations within the House Democratic Caucus. Jerry, Donnelly announced this week esophageal cancer is back. He's going to step back from his chairmanship of the House Oversight Committee. For those who are not read in on this, in the House, the Oversight Committee is a very important place because when you're in the minority, it's one of the very few places you might exercise some influence looking into the administration of an opposition party. Republicans use it aggressively against Biden. There's a long history there. Who runs that committee is very important to whoever is in the minority. Democrats in the minority, pick it up from there.
Well, in this moment especially, they've been using this committee to fight back against DOGE, fight back against Elon Musk, government cuts, which is why it's such a public-facing panel. Democrats on this committee tend to be more diverse, more progressive,
younger,
more viral, younger. But what we're witnessing right now is what happened right after the 2024 election when Democrats were trying to figure out what went wrong with Kamala Harris losing that election, wanting to figure out if they need younger, more diverse voices leading the party. And now here's Connolly, who unfortunately does have his cancer back. But Democrats on this committee figuring out who should replace him as the lead person on this panel. Now, Connolly ceded control to this panel to Stephen Lynch, another more conservative Democrat on the committee who does not do a lot of TV, who is not like the more progressive, diverse members on this committee. So there's already, again, that debate about what should happen.
And confusing signals from Democratic leaders about whether there's a vacancy or not.
Right. They're saying there's no vacancy because Connolly technically is still the top Democrat on this committee. He has not stepped back the way he formally said he would. It's unclear what's going to happen when there is a race. There could be a race in the next couple of weeks. It's unclear what Connolly is going to do. But when that happens, expect Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to be a name that people float again as possibly the person to lead this panel.
And Nancy, I'm going to frustrate the control room because I'm going to give you a moment to talk about this because you wrote a lengthy piece about the first 100 days, what led into it. We don't have time to go into all the things that led up to it, but if you could explain what you think is most important about how they approach the first 100 days and how that will feed into the next 100 or 200.
So just quickly, I mean, the reason that they were able to move at such a breakneck speed these first 100 days on executive orders and all these other things is that they really planned it way far in advance.
Almost for 4 years.
Almost for 4 years. As soon as they were out of power in exile, even though it seemed like Trump was down and out, they really started planning it. And I think the challenge for them for the next 100 days and just moving forward is actually implementing all these things. You know, do they actually have the staff at the agencies and the policy know-how to get all these things done? I think that remains to be seen, and we're seeing that with trade. It's, you know, a little bit of a mess, but we'll see that sort of across all these areas.
Nancy Cook, Daniella Diaz, always a pleasure to have you. Thanks so very much. I really appreciate it.